All right, will you comply? And I know a lot of people out there are immediately saying, no, I will not comply. And I see it online all the time. I will not comply, sir, is what people are saying. Well, they're talking about martial law, and I want to have the martial law conversation because I get the sense, and I don't mean this as an insult, that some people haven't really looked at martial law too closely and what martial law really means. I want to dig in on that, pull up a seat. Let's talk a little bit about what martial law is, what martial law means, as opposed to, say, lockdowns, right? We've had lockdowns before, and hey, you got to wear the mask, and you got to stay in your house, and you got to stand 6 feet apart. People can respond to that. I will not comply. Well, martial law, it sort of doesn't matter, right? In a lot of ways. If you look at the term martial, right? Martial law, martial is of or appropriate to war, warlike, so martial law is war. It's war law, right? What does that really mean? So I found a good article, kind of dug a little bit on this. U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs article, Martial Law in Times of Civil Disorder. So this is DOJ article about martial law in times of civil disorder, and I think that's a good place to start when talking about what does martial law mean, and does comply even matter under martial law. So martial law involves the temporary substitution of military authority for civilian rule and is usually invoked at time of war, rebellion, or natural disaster. Right, so when martial law is in effect, the military commander of an area or country has unlimited authority to make and enforce laws. Martial law is justified when civilian authority has ceased to function, is completely absent, or has become ineffective. And this is the important part coming up here further. Martial law suspends all existing laws as well as civil authority and the ordinary administration of justice. In the United States, martial law may be declared by proclamation of the president or a state governor, but such a formal proclamation is not necessary. So before we go too much further, martial law is the suspension of all laws replaced by military command, military law, warlike martial law. So whether you comply or not, your rights are gone, right? That's, I think, the first place to start, and we'll dig into that a little bit more. If martial law were declared, and it's happened 65 times in the history of the country, we'll get into that a little bit. There's a lot of great information, historical information out there about each of the 65 times martial law has been declared. Your rights are gone, right? It's not about do you comply, it's do you want to get shot, do you want to get detained, right? And habeas corpus is suspended, which is your right to a trial. They can just detain you. They can do what they want. It's martial law. So I think that's important to understand that going in, what is martial law. And the chickens are excited. They don't like the idea of martial law too much out here. Although the U.S. Constitution makes no specific provision for the imposition of martial law, so it's not actually in the Constitution granting the authority for the president to declare martial law. Nearly every state has a constitutional provision authorizing the government to impose martial law, so it's written at the state level, not the federal level. Constitution doesn't give martial law. The power of martial law, once held to be nearly absolute, has limitations. So here's the silver lining, maybe. For example, civilians may not be tried by military tribunals as long as civilian courts are functional. Nonetheless, within the bounds of court decisions, a military commander's authority under martial law is virtually unlimited. And you look at the 64 times martial law has been declared in the United States. In some cases, there were military tribunals rather than even going to court. Habeas corpus, I can't even speak it right. Rather than going to court, rather than having the right to a trial, they say, military tribunal, we're going to have 3 guys, maybe we're going to execute you for that, for whatever perceived crime. You have no rights. So martial law has been declared 9 times since World War II. In 5 instances was designed to counter resistance to federal desegregation decrees in the South. Although a climate of mutual aid has always existed between the military and civilian law enforcement and should continue to exist, the Department of Defense personnel are limited in what they can do to enforce civil law. Military personnel cannot be used in surveillance or undercover operations and may not be used as informants, investigators, or interrogators unless the investigation is a joint military-civilian operation in which the military has an interest in the case's outcome. So every caveat has an unless, right? So if martial law were to be declared and they put in whatever kind of new controls they want to put in, right? Whatever kind of new laws they want to put in. I've got a good example here. I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. So what to expect, right? We'll skip ahead. What to expect. Typically, the imposition of martial law accompanies curfews. That was the word I was looking for there. The suspension of civil law, civil rights, and habeas corpus, which is your right to actually get a trial when you're being detained, and the application or extension of military law or military justice to civilians. Civilians defying martial law may be subject to military tribunal, court-martial, right? So that was kind of one of the part I wanted to get into. Yeah, I said martial law has been declared at least 68 times in the United States. So if you're in an area where martial law has been declared, I kind of looked it up a little bit. The recommendation is run, right? They're talking about, well, if you have a really good, well-stocked hidden bunker, you should probably go there. You should probably go into your hidden bunker and try to ride it out, because at this point the military has taken over. They're doing the police, they're doing the Department of Justice, they're doing the courts. They've taken over the area, right? And there have been many times throughout history, even modern history, where martial law was declared, and obviously modern is debatable there. They're saying since World War II, and I have the list here. There were a couple I wanted to pull out that I thought were interesting. This is the Brennan Center Guide to Declaration of Martial Law in the United States. Martial law has been declared at least 68 times in the United States. This guide explains when, where, and why, so it's an interesting read. So there have been twice it's been declared because of war or invasion. I think Pearl Harbor was one. 7 times because of domestic war or insurrection. 11 times due to riot or civil unrest, 29 times throughout the history of the country due to labor disputes, 4 times for natural disaster, and 15 times for other. So if we look at the history of martial law for riot or civil unrest, as I think some people suspect going into 2024, there's at least some chance that civil unrest may happen, given that it's a contentious election year. So you had 1866, you had another one, 1886, you had 1900s, 1917s, 1919s, 1920, 1921, 24, 1930, 1943, so 1963. So that was the last time martial law was declared due to civil unrest. It was the Maryland Governor, J. Willard Tawes, declares martial law in response to the Cambridge riot in 1963. Covered area, Cambridge, Maryland, state level. Declaration June 14th, 1963 till July 8th, 1964. So 1 month of martial law. The precipitating event was the Cambridge riot, gives declaring authority. So in this case, relevant presidential proclamations or executive orders were none, and civilians tried by military tribunal were none. Right, so last time was 1963. Now, I suspect we probably would know more about it if the military was going around shooting people at random, right? I'm not saying that's what's going to happen under martial law. Weapon confiscation is certainly possible. Detention for not following curfews or anything else, absolutely possible. The idea is you've brought in the military to restore order, right? That would be the legitimate reason to declare martial law. So when people say I will not comply, I don't understand, right? The military is going to be there. They will shoot you. They will arrest you. What is there to comply with? Now maybe you're saying I wouldn't comply with curfews. The other word might be resist, and certainly resist at your peril, right? But comply, not comply. If they declare martial law, everything changes, right? Everything you know about your rights, your protections are out the window. So wanted to bring that up, right? Just simply because I see a lot of people talking about martial law. How do you prepare for martial law? Well, as I said, if you've got a hidey hole, it might be time to go to that hidey hole. Run. If it's in one state, one city, go somewhere else, right? Could be strange. Could be strange times. A lot of stuff could happen in those situations. So I want to throw that out there. Just one, to share a little bit on what is martial law exactly. Hope that helps out. So thank you for watching, and we appreciate you.